If I had to describe Ghostwire Tokyo in one word, one of a kind. Okay, 4 words. Let me tell you why. In 2023, Tango Gameworks, with the publishing help of Bethesda, gave us a brand new IP, promising a great time. Open world, first-person horror shooter, packed to the brim with authentic and accurate Japanese folklore.
Hey, that's pretty good.
It came and it went. Shelved and forgotten. Why? For one, the same year was stacked with heavy hitters and long-awaited titles for the first time in a long time. Talking about Baldur's Gate 3, Alan Wake 2, Mortal Kombat 1, Remnant 2, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. As you can tell, for a brand new IP to be buried by the competition is to put it mildly. And second, for the people who actually played it, some complained of a shallow plot and repetitive gameplay. Here's what I think. Ghostwire Tokyo is the embodiment of the Bulgarian expression skryta limonka, literally translated hidden lemon, more specifically this type of grenade. In some parts of the world is dubbed the lemon. Here, you learn something new. The meaning of the phrase is something that defies expectations and, pun intended, blows them away. But in a positive way. So, sit your ass down and let's take a look at yet another underappreciated diamond of a game. And before we continue, if you enjoyed these honest reviews and you want to see more, consider hitting the subscribe button. I'm still a small channel, so it really helps more than you think, and I genuinely appreciate it. Now let's get back to it.
簡単だ。思いっきり突っ込むんだよ。案内する。行くぞ。
A deranged scientist driven by grief and insanity named Hanya wants to reunite with his long-lost wife and daughter. Through occult rituals, he releases a deadly fog over Tokyo that rips the souls out of the city's population. His ultimate goal is to gather enough of those souls as spiritual power to open a gate between the world of the living and the dead. Our protagonist, named Akito, survives the fog only because he becomes possessed by the spirit of a dead occult detective called KK, who previously lost his life trying to stop Hanya's plan. After discovering that Hanya has chosen, by pure chance, Akito's sister as a tool for his plot, the goals become clear. KK agrees to let Akito remain in control of his own body, teaching him spells and casts, and in return Akito agrees to help KK stop Hanya, save as many trapped souls as possible, and of course, rescue Mari. Granted, the story is not going to win any Oscars, but then again, which game story should? Except Mass Effect, and I'll die on that hill. Akito and KK create this typical for the 90s and 2000s movies buddy cop dynamic, for which I have to admit I have a soft spot. General consensus is, in terms of the story, that it starts very strong, but with time it loses its pace. My honest opinion? The pacing fits the gaming environment, and I will explain why in the gameplay section later. You see KK only in select moments, as majority of the time KK is a disembodied voice in Akito's head, and is like a yellow mark in Akito's right hand, through which Akito, with the help of KK, is able to cast the attack spells and conjure hand and finger magic gestures, Naruto style. If there is something to criticize about the plot, I believe it's the villain. After all, your hero is only as good as your villain. The best villains are usually ideological opposites of the heroes. Think about it. The Joker works because he embodies chaos against Batman's order. General Zod works because he represents absolute authoritarian control as opposed to Superman's freedom of choice and compassion. In Ghostwire Tokyo, the two opposites of spectrums here are in fact Akito and KK. Akito is young, naive, emotionally not mature yet, introverted, reactive. KK is the other way around. He's talkative, very pragmatic in his approaches. The other vibe that he gives is experience beats emotions, constantly using dry humor and sarcasm. If Akito's mindset is,
I didn't ask for this,
KK's mindset and response is,
stop being a bitch and come on!
Hanya, however, feels very underdeveloped. His motivation, condemning an entire world simply to reunite with his family, comes across as weak and selfish. Listen, I've watched plenty of movies, read plenty of books, good and bad, enough to tell the difference between a strong and weak villain. Great villains are pragmatic, type of seeing the bigger picture. When Thanos did the snap, he wasn't driven by cruelty. He genuinely believed he was solving a problem. Hanya does the opposite. His actions are purely emotional, to the point of tunnel vision. He just misses his family, all else be damned. In terms of story depth, compared to him, even the random 90s Power Rangers villain starts looking like Anton Chigurh. Not gonna spoil it for you, but as you can probably guess, I was not impressed by the ending. More could have been done to rectify this, but then again, I'm no scriptwriter. Except for my own reviews, of course. Sadly, story-wise, this is where Ghostwire suffers the most. In a story, the quality of the hero and equally of the villain is what makes or breaks a good story. So that's why, for story, I have to give it 3 out of 5 stars.
逃げてるだけじゃ何も変わらない。
違う。僕はただ。
I personally took this long to finish it because I was constantly straying from the main quest path, doing side missions and collecting and exploring, to the point where I wondered if I have undiagnosed ADHD. So, let's go step by step. The map of the game is a very dense and compressed version of specifically Shibuya Ward in Tokyo. If you're just street level, it may seem huge, but once you start gliding from rooftop to rooftop, it may not seem so anymore. The first 10 minutes of the plot are a bit presented as a narrow tutorial with not so much freedom of movement or for fooling around, but once you unshackle yourself with your first cleansed Torii Gate, that's where the game opens up. The whole map is littered with plenty of things to do. In the beginning is covered in a dense fog. This acts as a barrier which will lead to your death if you try to muscle your way through it. In order to disperse it and make new parts of the map accessible, you need to cleanse Torii Gates. There are a total of 30 of them. What you will meet in your adventures through Shibuya is going to be either visitors, who are your main enemies, we'll talk about them in a little bit, and various spirits known in Japanese folklore and culture as yokai. As for the activities, side missions and quests marked with the green icon represent short quests where generally you got a spirit that has unfinished business that prevents them from passing over and you need to solve it. Most of the times it's about cleansing either a cursed or corrupted object or an area by getting rid of the trapped cursed souls, spreading corruption. Despite predominantly following a similar pattern every time, many of those side quests, each one seems original on its own. Some were touching, even sad, others were actually funny. Majority of the small mini markets are accessible for you to buy items. All these stores will be controlled by a Nekomata spirit, a cat with 2 tails, and there you will be able to buy food, which will be your main source for healing, arrows for your bow, and dog food, which will become useful later on. Other side activities will include either hunting specific yokai, like a kappa, no, not this one, Itan Momen, and Roburokubi. Rokukubiruku. Rokurokubi? Or protecting or saving certain yokai, such as an old cute tree spirit called Kodama, an Oni, Zashiki Warashi, and more. The main reward from both type of activities is a green stone that resembles half of a yin-yang symbol called Magatama, which is the source of yokai's supernatural power and will be used for unlocking more advanced versions of your powers later on in your skill trees. One of the powers Akito gets is called Spectral Vision, which can be used not only to scan your environment for enemies and objects of interest through walls, but also to be able to understand what cats and Shiba Inu dogs say, as they're the only living creatures left and you will encounter often. This is where the dog food from the store comes into play. You can pet them as a form of a gratitude, will uncover hidden make-a-stash for you.
He's a good boy. Yeah, he's a good boy.
Now, let's talk about the other type of spirits, called visitors. Visitors are an almost literal manifestations of negative human emotions, such as guilt, loneliness, societal pressure, jealousy, I mean, if I have to name each one, you and I will be here all day, so I'll just leave a link in the description detailing and describing all the visitors and what they're supposed to represent. Trust me, it's worth it. It's really cool. In your fight against them, you will use spiritual powers known as Ethereal Weaving. Once again, thanks to KK. There are 3 types of Ethereal Weaving based on elements in nature: wind, water, and fire. If you have to compare them to, let's say, guns in the normal first-person shooter, I see them this way. The wind weaving, in green color, is at first your pistol. Upgraded conjured form turns it into a machine gun. Pretty good for when dealing with one enemy at a time, but not really the best option for when you are surrounded. Water weaving, or in blue color, is like your shotgun. Holding down makes the blast stronger. It's short range, so it's best to be used up close. Upgraded Conjure version creates a freeze bubble like the OG Sub-Zero in Mortal Kombat 1 from 1995. This spell is very OP later on. And finally, Fire Weaving in red color. This is your grenade launcher for a good chunk of damage and blast area. Holding down, like in the Water Weaving, builds up the blast and travels in an arc. Upgraded Conjuring version turns your hand into a Dragon's Breath flamethrower. Ether acts as an ammo for those spell weapons, and you can get it replenished only by killing a visitor or smashing any of the random out of place floating objects. Other weapons you have in your arsenal is a Sacred Bow. Predominantly you will use it for targets that are far out of reach, or for the couple of times where KK would be ripped out of you and you will have to depend on your bow skills in order to survive. Although not weapons themselves, but very efficient in specific situations, are the Talismans, represented by magical sacred ticket-like papers that can stun enemies, or call on a temporary well to refuel you with ether, or even create a spirit bush to hide behind. And last but not least, acting as a power multiplier are sacred beads, which look like an ordinary colorful bead wristbands, which can amplify any of your weaving powers damage or give you additional abilities. Aikido has a total of 3 skill trees: abilities, ethereal weaving, and equipment. In abilities, you can upgrade your gliding skills, upgrade the range of your spectral vision, plus adding additional abilities such as dodging, ground pound, punch when landing from above, and more. The ethereal weaving skill tree upgrades are in terms of making your conjuring and casting faster and to have a wider range or area of effect. And equipment is mostly for upgrading your carrying capacity for arrows, food, talismans, how many bead wristbands you can have equipped at a time, etc. Now, when it comes to enemies, whether you use wind or water or fire weaving doesn't matter really. Only major difference between the different versions of a particular type of visitor is that each new introduced version is more spongy than the previous and can take more punishment from you. You will encounter some, I'd like to refer them unofficially as elites, like the invisible blob that will throw objects at you, that hanging smiley face that always creeps me the hell out, that red spinning ass, it's a to kill, and also the different variations of the tall woman with the scissors. Tengu can be found at the top of the buildings, that's another yokai, which with the help of KK's powers, you can use the Tengu to latch onto them and shoot yourself up to them like a hook and get on that rooftop. Combine that with the gliding upgrades later on and you can cover distances in no time. Finding collectibles, similar to a scavenger hunt, can be everyday items like a piece of human clothing, accessories, keychains, small toys, either normal or with the spiritual meaning, to macabre items such as a mummified corpse with the head of a human and the body of a dog. What the actual Those type of collectibles came fetching some nice maker rewards and exclusive items. Other collectibles you can find can be small toy figures of characters from the game, from humans and animals to visitors and yokai, found in these gumball-like machines. Arguably the most important thing you will do is to collect floating bunches of souls scattered all over Shibuya by using another religious item from the Japanese folklore, a small paper cut in the shape of a human called katashiro. Once you collect souls for safekeeping with katashiro, you can go to any marked on the map street telephone where you can transfer those souls into the void. I guess, not sure. but in any case, safe from Hanya's plan, away from danger. And this will be the primary way for you to level up and upgrade your abilities. I'm sure I'm missing something, not gonna lie, but just from all that I shared so far, and if you're still here watching and your ears are not already bleeding, I dare you to tell me that the game is boring and there's nothing to do.
And I dare you, I double dare you, motherfucker.
People have complained and accused the game of being shallow and repetitive, from the combat system to the many Torii gates cleansing and side activities. Looking at it objectively, yeah, they're correct. You do the same thing over and over again, sure. But here's my 2 cents on this. Easy example. I love the Far Cry series. Blood Dragon DLC, Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 5 the most, in that order. There, you also do the same things over and over again, dealing with enemy camps, liberating strongholds, etc. But weirdly enough, I never really heard anyone complaining about repetitiveness. But you still did those activities, right? You know why? Because you got sucked in that gaming world. It got you hooked. The story, the atmosphere got you by the... And that's how I felt with this game.
It's a hell of a drug.
If it didn't, of course you're gonna complain and yap about repetitiveness, so don't take it personally, but complaining about repetitiveness is a very low-hanging fruit, making for a very shallow point. Also, in terms of what I mentioned in the story section about the complaints that the story arc kicked off well initially and then, like, it lost its pace, like halfway through, well, need I remind you, this is an open world game, okay? Where's the fun by just rushing the main story? What's the point if you don't get to appreciate and experience the world and all it has to offer on the side? Of course, the pace of the main story arc will suffer for a bit. Am I trying to say that Ghostwire is perfect? Absolutely not. What are my own criticisms of the game? I have to agree, the combat, although it's beautiful and flashy, I know at least a couple of other titles that added a little bit more depth into their combat system. Here you have 3 distinct elements, but in reality the choice of usage mostly boils down to just pick your favorite attack and mash until you run out of ether. There's no resistance or weakness system, which is such a missed opportunity. In addition, the only way to up the weaving damage is only by equipping wristbands, as the skill tree only upgrades the casting spell, but not the damage output, and that for me was a little disappointing. Another thing is the gliding. Even on max upgrade, the gliding can last for no longer than 5 seconds. Granted, no fall damage, but still, a little annoying. Another thing that annoyed me was the inconsistency of the floating random ether objects from which you replenish your ether ammo. Not all the time, but often you will find yourself with very little ether ammo left after your last fight when entering a new one. It seems the amount of ether you get from each ether object you smash is more or less complete RNG. The size of the object itself doesn't guarantee anything in terms of how much ether you will be able to replenish. I don't know if I'm just unlucky, but most of the times it tries to supply me with ether that I don't want, or already full of it, and not giving me enough of the ether I actually want.
Well, thanks, and thanks, I guess.
Gameplay? 4 out of 5. Ghostwire Tokyo is very detailed and beautiful, no two ways about it. Based on my research, the developers laser scanned the whole real Shibuya ward of Tokyo, although here it's presented very tightly compressed version of it with some creative freedoms. I don't know, I've never been to Japan, but it looks pretty accurate depiction to me. So, if anyone from Japan is watching this, write in the comments below how accurate it is. Although I don't speak a lick of Japanese, I did the same thing I did with the Yakuza games. I set the spoken language in Japanese instead of English with English subtitles for maximum immersion, and I was not disappointed at all. Despite majority of the yokai to be more on the authentic side in terms of representation from the Japanese lore, I understand that the models for the visitors are created specifically for the game and don't really have any actual ties with the Japanese folklore. Their imaginings, I'd say it's pretty fitting, but I can't help myself, I have to say, the inspirations on some are so obvious that even Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder can see right through them. The very first type of visitors, for example, are straight up copy-pasted Slender Man. You got the schoolgirls and boys, which I would assume is an overused trope from almost every Japanese horror flick. In terms of the horror element, and that was also a point of contention for a lot of people, that it wasn't scary enough and didn't live up to the expectations of the genre it normally belongs to. Does it have jump scares? Here and there. Overall, it was, I would say, very mild. And for me, personally, that was good news, because call me up if you want, but I don't like horror at all. With scary moments here and there in games like, let's say, Fear, Clive Barker's Jericho, Observer, that level, I can live with that. But full-on horror like Outlast style, yeah, no thanks, I'll pass. Graphics in Ghostwire are on a very high level, representations of the casting elements is beautiful to look at. Maneuverability is such I haven't seen in an open world game in a long time, not since Just Cause series. You can scale almost any building you see, either through the use of a Tengu to latch on, or scale up any object or ledges even if they are like 3 heads above you. A huge plus is the absence of the type of invisible walls, of course, other than the actual edges of the map, so if there is a small opening between 2 buildings, very high chance you can squeeze through it. And in this game, straying from the path to go exploring is highly encouraged by the game, I can tell, because that's how you're able to find majority of the items you seek, such as those collectibles that I mentioned earlier. You don't really need any walkthroughs or videos of where can I find X.
What are you, fucking stupid? Huh?
Just go and explore. Sooner or later you will find what you are looking for. Biggest trouble for me was finding on my own the upgrade ether statues. Within the vicinity of most torii gates you've cleansed, there is a donation box where you can donate couple of mechas, and no pun intended, your prayers will be answered. And what you seek will appear on your map. Some people may find this making things too easy or accuse the game of holding your hand. I guess it's subjective. I personally didn't mind at all. Sound is pretty much on par too. Granted, during your adventures it will be just you in the night air, but when the music kicks in, it's always in tune with the surroundings and has this like macabre Japanese folklore feel. The sheer amount of activities once you open the map can seem a little bit overwhelming at first, but once you just start ticking off one by one, and of course make sure you set your filter to completed activities to disappear from the map, it'll start to become more bearable. As I've mentioned, you can travel on foot, which from one side to the other of the map can take forever, and of course meet visitors almost every 2 blocks. Or you can find a way to get to the nearest rooftop and just glide like a paper plane from rooftop to rooftop. Thankfully, any cleansed torii gates or discovered Nekomata shop stands can act as a fast travel point. As I've repeated multiple times in my review, the game is very Japanese folklore heavy.
Oh, for crying out loud.
The thought of that can intimidate, maybe, and turn off some. To be honest, I was even a little worried for doing this review, thinking that most probably a lot of you will expect me to throw constant anime nods and memes up the left and right diagonally. The way the Japanese folklore is presented here, through the characters or collectibles and the codex, is done in such a subtle and very friendly way as to not overload you from minute 1 or give you the feel that you need to be an absolute Japanese expert to be able to keep up with it all. It is done, as I said, in a very subtle, beginner-friendly way. As for design, 5 stars from me. If I have to summarize it, Ghostwire has plenty to offer and deserves a second chance by everyone. Does it tend to be repetitive in some aspects? Yes. Is the story arc weak? Eventually, yes. But is it a good time? Oh, hell yes. Does it deserve your attention? It absolutely should. Especially if you let yourself fall into that rabbit hole that is the Japanese folklore. I recommend this game with 2 hands and feet in the air. Final score for Ghostwire Tokyo, a well-deserved 4 out of 5 stars. Thank you all for watching. This is SaltyKal. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you very much. See you next time.
仲良くしてやってくれよ。仕方ねえ。遊んでやる。